Well, Matt Campbell aced the player retention at Penn State. He got a ton of Iowa State players, but the questions remain about everybody else that's not affiliated with either of those schools.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State football and the transfer portal. And thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. Help me welcome back Pat Koerbler of Black Shoe Diaries, joining me here to break down the no mass following. There was no pipeline from Penn State to Virginia Tech. Penn State is still in a great position to succeed and honestly overachieve in 2026. If you're asking me, we'll talk about it. We'll debate. But the portal, okay, Penn State retention, great. Iowa State additions, great. The secondary class, though, well, we'll debate that here. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. So, Pat, it's great to have you back. It seems like you and I have fantastic conversations when it comes to the portal, so I know this will be nothing less here. James Peoples, that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. Hey, that could have been RB1 for Ohio State. But then, okay, you look at some of the other players. Well, there's upside, there's potential, but there really haven't been those home run, slam dunk portal additions outside of, you have the Iowa State players, you have the Penn State players that were retained. But really, James Peoples, and maybe I should have the list in front of me at this given moment, but other than Peoples and Brock Riker, I don't know how much this secondary portal class wows me beyond what they were able to do in those other two categories.
No, I'm in agreement, Zach. When I kind of break it down this way, right? So there was the roster retention piece for Penn State, which I think
was great.
By and large was like really good. Towards the end, we kind of petered out as far as like I would have liked to have kept like 40 to 45 Penn State players. It looks like they're going to be more in like the 35 area. But by and large, I think if you're a Penn State fan or an outsider, like you would probably at worst give Matt Campbell, as far as roster retention goes, a B+. When you look at what he did with the Iowa State transfers, I mean, they basically got every single player that they wanted to get and then some. So I don't know how you can't give it an A. Getting Rocco Becht and Benjamin Brahmer and Marcus Neal and all these guys that we've talked about a ton of times. Mm-hmm. When I do look at that non-Iowa State portal class, though, I'm not particularly blown away by it. And there are reasons for that. One, yes, the Iowa State guys have those personal connections with Matt Campbell, and that was a big reason why you get 25 of them or however many they're up to now to come here.
A lot.
They were not cheap. Rocco Becht did not come cheap. Benjamin Brahmer
didn't come at a discount. You're telling me there wasn't an NIL discount?
Maybe a little bit here and there, but Rocco Becht still was a quarterback in the portal that Lane Kiffin and LSU tried to get.
Yes.
Benjamin Brahmer was, depending upon who you talk to, the best tight end in the portal. You look at Marcus Neal, he can fit into any defense in the country. Caleb Bacon, a linebacker, could go and really play anywhere. So all those guys are, just to say that Penn State definitely, invested into that Iowa State portal class, and thus this non-Iowa State portal class, I would say just maybe not as good as we were hoping expectations wise. And like I said, that Iowa State portal class is a big reason for it. I think the other side of it is that Matt Campbell is trying to build this for the long haul, whether that's right or wrong, just based upon this 2026 schedule, which I know we'll talk about here in a second with the, expectations and just the chance that Penn State has with how, I don't want to use the word soft, but how soft the schedule is. But I was just personally expecting a little bit more, right? You mentioned James Peoples, Ohio State running back. We mentioned Texas State, Brock Riker. And then I think the other guy that people are really excited about is Alex McPherson, the Colorado defensive.
Yes. I should have named him initially too, but again, he falls under the category of upside, right? This isn't an instant impact starter. So maybe I'm speaking from a privileged point of view, because a lot of these Iowa State players, or at least over half of them, are going to be starters, are going to be instant contributors. Again, Marcus Neal checks that box, Jeremiah Cooper. So you and I kind of passively bring up a point where, well, this other portal group is they're supplemental players because roster retention, hey, was great. I feel like almost you can't have all three in this instance because one of them was going to stink. In a sense, you were either going to lose a ton of Penn State players. You did. Okay, in quantity, I guess you did. But we're talking about the qualities, the names retained. If Cooper Cousins had left, Anthony Donko, Tony Rojas, Kobe Howard, that's when the alarms would have been going off. But they retained most of the players that were going to be key players on the 1-2 deep depth chart, okay? For the most part. You saw Matt Campbell leave, okay, King Mac, but then that's where Jeremiah Cooper comes in. That's where Marcus Neal comes in. You get not one, but two quarterbacks, one of which who could be your quarterback of the future. So you lose Grunkemeyer, but Alex Mansky could be just that for 3 more years after this season. So it was one of those categories was going to be bad at the end of the day. And it happens to be the one that I guess maybe I'm the least concerned about. I would rather him check off the player retention category at Penn State, the additions from Iowa State, because that speaks volumes of Matt Campbell, that, oh, there's all these players that want to follow him. Oh, there's all these players that are already there that want to stay. So that third category, I guess, is the least concerning. If Penn State would have truly had the floodgates fall down and there was this pipeline that was going to Virginia Tech, then I think that third category to replace all of that production probably would have been better and we wouldn't be having this conversation necessarily.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. I don't want to say the issue, but the problem with this non-Iowa State portal class is you look at those guys and who are you 100% sure is starting? Now we can look at the defensive tackles and some of them are going to start because
they have to.
Honestly, yeah, right. They have to. Penn State didn't have a lot in the way of defensive tackles that were coming back with Zander and Alonzo Ford leaving. Iowa State didn't have a lot that were coming over. So guys like Keanu Williams and Armstrong Nadeem, right? Probably going to be starters or at least, a handful of them because the defensive tackle is a spot that has 2 spots and somebody's going to start there. But right, we mentioned like to me, Brock Reicher, the Texas State offensive center, and Alex McPherson, the Colorado defensive end. Those are the 2, I think, most impressive gets, just given the other schools that were after Reicher, some SEC schools, Alabama, Oklahoma, and then some of the schools that were after McPherson, schools like Auburn and I believe Ole Miss. But I still can't say for sure that, right, like
they're not guaranteed that they're going to be home runs.
Yeah, and certainly in 2026, which again, I know I keep teasing it, but when we look at that schedule, it just every Penn State fan looks at that schedule and just looks so tasty, and you're like, I know this was always supposed to be right. Even with James Franklin, this was going to be a bit of a transition season, just given the experience that you had on the 2025 team. And man, you throw this whole wrench of a new coaching staff, and it really is a transition season. But you still think, hey, we can get the Iowa State guys. We can retain, the quality, a good portion of the quality of the Penn State roster. And if we can land some big fish, some non-Iowa State guys in the portal, like, all right, maybe we can squeak ourselves in the playoffs. Again, we'll get to that discussion here in a bit, but I feel like there's just, maybe a player or 2 short when you look at like the non-Iowa State guys, like the 2 that like stick out to me just based upon what Penn State needs. I think right now you would love another offensive tackle, particularly left tackle. Those are expensive. Mm-hmm. You would love another defensive end. Those are expensive. And you would love at least a wide receiver 3 or 4. Again, we'll see what happens with the Iowa State.
I guess that's Keith Jones Jr. But again, it doesn't wow you that he's from Grambling State.
But no, right? So you look at like some of the guys that were available, like Kenny Johnson at Pitt. He's I believe a York PA.
You could name dozens of them. I'm disappointed they didn't get Noah Rogers.
Yeah, Noah Rogers, a guy that the previous staff have recruited, so was the least familiar with Penn State. But I look at say that Penn State Atlantic, Kenny Johnson, and Northwestern defensive end Anto Saka instead of going to Texas A&M, he follows Christian Smith, Penn State's new defensive end.
Wouldn't even have this conversation.
Yeah, I think right, and that's what I mean. Like, I think the non-Iowa State portal guys, it's solid depth, and all in all, it's not like a bad portal class, but they're just missing those couple top end guys, right? If you toss in a Kenny Johnson, if you toss in an Anto Saka. And I can't think of like a good left tackle. It's really not that great of a tackle class, to be honest. But right, if they could have got just one more offensive tackle in the portal, then I think that we're kind of singing a different tune here.
And I still do like this group from a depth perspective. Again, you were winning some recruiting battles, but you and I are on the same page that there's just honestly 2, maybe 3 players where okay, this guy's a starting wide receiver, or this guy is, I mean, do we want to talk, right? I think this will go along with the expectations for 2026 because Penn State is still lacking at edge defender, defensive end. And I guess for the most part, we're kind of ignoring that there are really only 3 reliable names at this point, but the schedule is so easy. You can use the word cakewalk. It is okay. We'll discuss how 2026 is going to go here in the middle of January, coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. And here's what you're going to love about it. You get to use the profit boost on bets you already feel good about. You can ride with the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup. You can take a shot on an underdog if you feel like an upset's coming, or you can build a parlay around the players, around the moments you think are going to decide the game. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. And once again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. If you haven't already, go check out our all-new Everydayer Club. You get inside access to this show with the Everydayer Club. As a member of the Everydayer Club, you will get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Nittany Lions compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcasting app. You'll also get an invite to a members-only Discord, Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of the show. Go to LockedOnNittanyLions.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more about the all-new Everydayer Club. 2026 should be easy, right? If Penn State trips and stumbles, Matt Campbell, I think, will have some things to answer for. If this team, if they miss a bowl game, okay, that is a major red flag for me. Honestly,
disaster.
That is a major red flag for me. The floor, in my opinion, is 8-4 because you have quarterback solved. Running back depth chart is great. Offensive line to be determined, but I'm optimistic. Again, you get Cousins, you get Donko back. I think Garrett Sexton and Owen Alasini are starting caliber. You retain Malachi Goodman. Let's not forget about that. So again, we voice our complaints about the non-Iowa State, non-Penn State players, but also in the process, okay, you know what? They did retain a 5-star offensive lineman. Okay, you got Andrew Raplier back. Okay, you got Tony Rojas back.
Yeah.
My questions really don't lie within the offense. If Penn State is going to have its ups and downs in 2026, it's going to be D'Anton Lynn being in his first season, even though I'm confident in Lynn. I'm not questioning the hire, but it is an adjustment. You're going now from Manny Diaz to Tom Allen to Jim Knowles and I know it's a head coach, so this was naturally more or less going to happen, but you have 4 defensive coordinators in 4 seasons. Like, think about that for a moment. If you're Penn State, and I know most of those play, but think about it for a second. Tony Rojas has now played in 4 different defenses. Like, just kind of comprehend that for a moment. But I think Lynn was hired with intention. But if your concerns lie with any group overall, it is the defense.
Yes and no. I mean, I think there's questions really all across the roster. Like I
mean, generally, yeah, but I'm going to circle the defense more than the offense.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly the case, just because I think in both cases, right, offense and defense, I think the biggest questions are at the line of scrimmage. And I think at defensive end is in particular kind of what we look at as
name the defensive ends.
Yeah, right. So you're depending upon Kamaju, who great that they got back, but
it's a win.
He's the top defensive end on the team, and he's someone that impressed as a freshman, but it's a big jump to be a true sophomore and to be the guy now. Going to be depending a lot on McPherson, who we mentioned from Colorado, and Max Granville coming off a season-ending, I believe it was knee injury. Again, I don't know what
leg lower body injury, right? Yes. If we're going to generalize, but that's it. That's the group. Yeah. That in my opinion, is a major issue. I don't like that at all.
No, absolutely. I mean, you are at this point are really just hoping that like Mason Robinson can somehow all of a sudden just stay healthy, that Deshaun Burnett, a redshirt freshman, can take a step. I mean, I'm continue to beat the drum for LeVar Arrington. The second is a defensive end, not a linebacker, but even if he's moved to defensive ends, I don't know how realistic it is that he's ready to really play. So yeah, I mean, there's questions on both sides of, offense and defense. I think I feel the best about, if there's like one position group I feel best about, or one like I don't want to say like unit, I guess. I want to say like the secondary as a whole. I like what they did at safety. Yeah. I like what they did at corner. I think even linebacker, I think the back end of that defense is really strong. You can have a great back seven if you cannot generate pressure with your front four. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So I like what they did at defensive tackle as far as, like just getting big guys that are, I mean, in a lot of cases, they're 23, 24, 25 years old. I think that they'll be at least competent with stopping the run, which, I mean, as far as how do you want to see your defense struggle? Would you rather see them struggle getting after the passer, or would you rather see them struggle with stopping the run? I would say like 9 out of 10 coaches would say, okay, we at least want to be able to stop the run. But yeah, some of those high upside offenses, I think, is where you get concerned with Penn State's ability to get after the passer. And when you look at the schedule, like, okay, you don't have the Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State trio, which is like absolutely massive, but USC, right? I mean,
they should contend for a conference title.
Yeah, right. Lincoln Riley knows what he's doing on offense. Williams is back at Washington, at least we think, now that they threatened to sue him. So, I mean, right, that certainly helps them. So I'm it's funny that we say like we're doing this exercise in January. We'll be doing this exercise August 13th. And I think that we will be saying a lot of the same things of like,
mostly,
I really don't know. And even from like, I know you said like a 4 of 8-4, I'd probably go more like 7-5, but just even from like a staying healthy and depth perspective, I've liked some of the depth pieces that they have gone in the portal. This is not the depth that Penn State has usually had, right, in years past, as far as when Franklin was stacking. Again, they weren't top 10 classes, but you have a 13th ranked class, you have a 17th ranked class, you have another 15th ranked class. So the depth just isn't going to be there from that perspective. And that's one of the things that happened with Iowa State this year and why they got off to a 5-0 start. And then they ended 8-4 because they had some injuries, specifically in the secondary, and they just weren't able to overcome them. So Zach, I'll ask you a question. I know that this is your show and you're the host, but I'm going to ask you a question. So we all look at the schedule and it's right. The going to Michigan, going to Washington, hosting USC. Those are like the 3 toughest games. Beyond those 3 games, what is, because you said like a floor of 8-4. If they go 8-4, I assume 3 of those losses are to those teams. What is the 4th loss? What is the game outside of those 3 games that concerns you the most?
Right. That's so we're on the same wavelength, because I was going to say, all right, let's go game by game on the schedule and let's kind of project that out. So they're not losing to Marshall. They're not losing at Temple. They're not losing to Buffalo. I think Maryland will be better because I like Malik Washington, but I still project Penn State better than I do at Maryland. I keep seeing them lose key players in the portal. Michigan's kind of in the same category as Penn State. What are they going to be? My confidence in that game is higher than it was originally before all of this movement, right? With the context of what happened to Sherrone Moore, right? I thought Michigan was going to be a little more stable. What happened with
Michigan Sherrone Moore? I don't know.
Separate conversation, and we'll have to save it for another episode. At Northwestern, hey, they're power moves only. Chip Kelly coming in, right? Aiden Childs. Northwestern, confidence is now lower in Northwestern, but it's still, well, I guess, should I say that because Penn State lost to Northwestern, right, as a 20-point favorite? So maybe I shouldn't try to dunk on the Wildcats. Minnesota, hey, PJ Fleck's always going to give you a scrappy fight for the most part, I guess. Well, Penn State anyway. I don't know what it is about PJ Fleck getting up for Penn State, but he seems to like that game for the most part. You're beating Purdue, you're beating Rutgers. USC, thank goodness it's at home at Beaver Stadium.
Yeah.
You're beating Wisconsin. Wisconsin's kind of one of the new bottom feeders of the Big Ten now, since they've done
solid in the portal. They've gone
where they've gained, they've lost.
What was that?
where they have gained momentum, they have also lost it. It's kind of an eye for an eye situation. It's a net neutral. Sure. And then you have Washington, which not ideal to travel to Seattle. You get Damon Williams back, but I just think about the chemistry. My confidence for Penn State now in that game, even with Williams coming back, is actually still kind of steadier, because how does the team and the coaching staff view the quarterback that literally did try to leave? So, all right, Washington, because it's a lengthy road trip, and that's still a decent team. That's still a good team for the most part. Michigan, it's at Michigan. I like Kyle Whittingham, and USC is supposed to contend for the conference. Those are the ones that I circle and say, these are 3 games that I'm the least confident in. And then if they drop a surprising one, I could see them losing to a Minnesota, or maybe Northwestern trips them up. Yeah. But that's really it. And then I think this team can get to the playoff, because if Washington disappoints, if Michigan disappoints, when is that game at Beaver Stadium for USC? If that's in the middle of November, I might think that plays into Penn State's favor at times. So 10-2 is Penn State is closer to 10-2 than they are 6-6 in 26.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also, just for the record, the fact that we don't have dates for these games yet is like really weird and crazy, because
good job, Big Ten.
Yeah, last year is like December 10th they announced these dates. If they're just, I mean, perhaps I don't know why they would be waiting for like the portal to close, if that like changes anything, but it's not like you're picking kickoff times, right? It's not like right now they're like they were waiting to see like, oh, what's Michigan going to do in the portal? Maybe they'll jump up and be a top 10 team or whatever it might be. Like, it's just the dates. I don't know what they're waiting for. And that's like the other side of this. Like, we're having this discussion, like this, like the schedule loss is going to play a big part in this. Like, where is like like Penn State has they go to Washington and they play this team, and then they have to go to Michigan. Is there something like that in there? So
yeah, that would be bad.
It's tough to pick like the landmines without knowing what the actual dates are and what the actual schedule is. But no, it's a tasty schedule, and that's like sort of what sucks about it. Like if Penn State had its druthers, if Matt Campbell could really like pick the schedule, I almost think that he would flip 2026 and push it back to 2027 or 2028, just to allow for more time to build the program, but build the roster. But you're jumping into this right away, and yes, Matt Campbell's going to have like the idea that every program has to be like Kurt Cignetti in Indiana now. That's just like not super realistic. Mm-hmm. Matt Campbell's definitely going to have a longer leash, but they have such an opportunity with this 2026. He cannot disappoint from a recruiting and roster and building the culture and getting the buy-in from the team and everything. Like going 9-3 or going at 10-2, making the playoff or not making the playoff, going 10-2 would be amazing. So we'll see. January 13th. What a conversation.
I mean, if we're going to give hypothetical spreads, in my mind, Penn State's favored in 9 of these games. The ones that I see them being underdogs in: USC, Michigan, Temple, Washington to start. Those are the 3 games where I can say confidently they're probably an underdog in those games. The other ones are either Penn State's a slight favorite or a significant favorite. That's why I kind of have that 8-4, 10-2, 9-3 is the sweet spot for the moment right now. A lot of things are going to change. Well, some people were projecting massive changes. A pipeline was going to open up and feed right into Virginia Tech from Penn State. No, that wasn't the case at all. And I wonder if Virginia Tech didn't get all of the pieces that they wanted, whether they were affiliated with Penn State or not. So this is an opportunity to kind of start to review how James Franklin has done at VT from the Penn State perspective, which is what everyone's asking for. That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. I think this is a message. I think this segment's actually more for Virginia Tech fans than it is Penn State fans, but there are Penn State fans that I'll speak for myself. I am actually very excited to watch Virginia Tech. You can call it a hate watch if you want. I don't want to see Franklin fail. I will also say that I don't want him to succeed more than Penn State in the future. Let me also add that. But I now get another team to follow on. But I also should say that about Tennessee, right? Tennessee picked up more production from Penn State than Virginia Tech and James Franklin did. And that's why we're having this conversation, because it's not only not not only did Virginia Tech not get this mass influx of Penn State talent or assistant coaches and everything like that. Yes, for the most part, personnel behind the scenes, right? The Andy Frank and company, that group is mostly Penn State, but that group is mostly James Franklin. I don't think that group's mostly Penn State. I think that's mostly James Franklin. But then Deion Barnes goes to South Carolina, right? Stan Drayton goes to South Carolina. Anthony Poindexter goes to Tennessee. Jim Knowles goes to Tennessee, right? I guess you retain Brent Pry, which is James Franklin's preference and everything else. You don't get Dan Connor, okay? You get Ty Howell, you get Danny O'Brien. Marcus Hagans goes to Michigan as an assistant wide receivers coach. And then you're getting players that don't have any production in comparison. Okay, yes, Ethan Grunkemeyer, and that move still hasn't been official.
Yeah.
But Luke Reynolds, when you're actually talking, hey, well, he's got upside. Hey, he's a former 4-star. How many snaps has he played? How much on-field production does he actually tangibly have? Most of that went to Tennessee. I'd argue more of that went to North Carolina with a commitment like Jalen Harvey. So my point being is that Virginia Tech, I think should be honestly very disappointed. Okay. We have our criticisms about what Penn State hasn't done to this point with the other parts of its transfer portal class. You get Ethan Grunkemeyer, you get Luke Reynolds, you get some players that have upside that you should definitely be excited about. But how many of those guys are instant starters, instant impact players outside of Grunkemeyer, Reynolds? I like Daniel Jennings, but again, you don't get King Mack. He goes to NC State. You don't get Dejon Lane. You don't get Amari Campbell. That's where, if I'm Virginia Tech, I would be disappointed that all these other players went to colleges that are close to us and not us.
Yes. And to be clear to like Virginia Tech fans that are potentially going to find this and then yell at us in the comments,
I hope they do.
None of the nothing against any of the Penn State players or former Penn State players that went to Virginia Tech. I think it's a good haul, right? We can go through it and we will in a second. It's not so much that like those guys stink or can't be good. It's just more so like you're saying, Zach, like kind of from like kind of what I was talking about before with Penn State and Matt Campbell in this 2026 schedule. Like just this idea, like, okay, like, can we go 10-2? Can we go 9-3? And Virginia Tech fans, I'm sure, are thinking the same thing. And this was like the prime opportunity and why James wanted to jump back into coaching so quickly. I mean, he's a psychopath. Like that's one reason. And he can't just sit and like enjoy his millions, which I mean, like, I don't say that like negatively. I mean, like actually good for him. He truly does love coaching. Mm-hmm. But a big part of that was this idea that what he did with the recruiting class, right? Like bringing like 50% of Penn State's recruiting class and bringing that Virginia Tech and having a ready-made recruiting class. And then also having ready-made Division I, Big Ten Penn State football players and bringing them and putting them at Virginia Tech. Right now, most of what he's gotten, like you said, it's guys that have talent and are projectable, but
they haven't done anything.
Yeah, a lot of guys that just flat out haven't done anything yet. And
other than Grunk and Reynolds, because I remember the message boards and the social media chatter. Tony Rojas is coming to Virginia Tech. Amari Campbell too. Anthony Kamaju. Anthony Donko is from Gilliam. Virginia. Yeah. Xavier Gilliam. And at what point? How much does it take to ignore all of that? Because I feel like that's severely. That is you're batting under 150 because you got Luke Reynolds. Okay. Yeah. You're getting Ethan Grunkemeyer. Maybe, right? Why hasn't that gone through yet? Even though there's still optimism there. So I won't comment on that too much. More people know more than I would in that situation. So you're 2 for all of the other and that feels like it's almost Grunkemeyer wanted to be at Penn State. That's the understanding that we had. Okay. So the people that like to rely on message board rumors and everything else, that seems to be the clear understanding that Grunkemeyer wanted to be at Penn State. So by proxy, it's almost kind of like a sympathy edition in a way, because it's not like Grunk jumped into the portal to go to Virginia Tech. It's because he didn't feel like he had a spot at Penn State. Same thing with Luke Reynolds. If you're asking me, did Luke Reynolds go into the portal with the intention to go to Virginia Tech, or was it because Penn State added not 1, not 2, but 3 tight ends from Iowa State?
Yeah. And that's just like, again, from our perspective as Penn State fans, like what we saw Matt Campbell do with Iowa State and bringing over, again, basically every single guy that he wanted to, like that is a mass exodus that I think a lot of Virginia Tech fans were hoping for, and what a lot of Penn State fans were like worried about. Like, if you would have told me a month ago that none of Anthony Donko, Xavier Gilliam, Dejon Lane, or Amari Campbell or Tony Rojas would end up at Virginia Tech,
Kobe Howard,
I would be quite surprised. Well, Kobe Howard, I don't know
Martin.
I don't know if Kobe Howard is James Franklin's biggest fan, given some of that leaked audio. But besides the point, I just would have thought that they would have gotten like a couple more ready-made starters, and they just again right now to this point they haven't. And Zach, if you don't mind, we can go through each of them. So Daniel Jennings, that's a 2025 kid. Matt Henderson, good tight end, that's a 2025 kid. Jeff Exner, I loved Exner as a recruit, another 2025 kid that's coming off a red shirt. Let's see, keep going up. Michael Troutman, center, another 2025 kid. Cortez Harris is a 2025 kid. Randy Adarica, defensive tackle, is a 2025 kid. So then you're looking at Luke Reynolds, who
ready-made starter.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know a lot of Penn State fans are gonna poo-poo Luke Reynolds. Luke Reynolds is a good tight end. I would be quite surprised if he doesn't have like 40 plus receptions.
Just don't use him as a blocker. He's Mike Gesicki.
Yeah,
he is Mike Gesicki in my opinion.
He's going to do really well, and Ty Hull is bringing him in there to be a real focal point of their offense. So Luke Reynolds, which that's a quality get. I really like Malachi Williams as far as like a nice right defensive end going into his third season, battled some injuries this year, but I think he's someone that's talented. And at the very least is like a 2 deep defensive end. I don't know if he's, a starter. I don't know if he's someone that's going to have 5 sacks and 11 tackles for loss, but at least somebody that can be a rotational defensive end. I think that's solid. Keon Wiley, solid linebacker. He's someone that can start at Virginia Tech for, and again,
ready-made starter. There you go.
Right. I say this and it sounds bad, but for where Virginia Tech is at, like in their, just where they've been like the last really 10 years, as far as talent wise and what they have on their roster with James Franklin coming in, like Keon Wiley is going to be a good linebacker for them. And then who are we missing? I think that's
Grunkemeyer.
And then it's just, what was that?
Grunkemeyer.
Yeah. It's just Grunk, who hasn't been officially announced yet. Which...
And I think the issue is, this is my opinion. This is not inside information. I don't think the Bryce Baker commitment went over well. That's just if I'm looking at it from 1,000 feet away, and I'm not trying to guess, or I'm not trying to read message board comments. This is strictly a pure guess. I think wires got crossed. Bryce Baker committed. They were recruiting because you didn't know Grunk was going to go in the portal. So you started recruiting other quarterbacks. Well, Bryce Baker expects to be a starter. He was a former top end recruit.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be, he was going to be a starter in waiting if he went to Penn State. And then Grunk is supposed to get into a QB competition after starting 7 games at Penn State. No. So that's just my 2 cents on the situation. I might be totally wrong, but I think that's why there's a lot of renegotiations, more conversations to be had because of that situation.
Yeah, it is weird that he's right. Grunk isn't popping up anywhere else as far as like, right? Like, I mean, Bo went and visited, it seemed like every single school. It's like, why is Gronk not out there visiting different schools? But I also agree with you. Like, Luke Reynolds, we knew was going to Virginia Tech from the very beginning once he entered. And they clearly waited until this past Sunday to announce it. So it's like, I don't know what exactly they're waiting for with Gronk, unless they want to do like announce them like the day of the national championship game for whatever reason, or like I'm just trying to think of some reason why they would not be announcing it. It's weird though. I definitely agree it's weird. I would still expect them to end up there, but I don't know. Gronk would be a quality get. Love Gronk. Good quarterback. Like
that's your starter for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah. So no, this is not like what James Franklin is doing at Virginia Tech is not that he's doing a bad job or he's not going to do well in his first season or anything like that. It's just more from the Penn State perspective and what I personally expected. I thought it was going to be way more. Yeah, I thought it was going to be way worse than this. If it ends up being, what are they at, like 9 or 10 or 11 guys, and 50% of them are guys that are coming off a redshirt season, like, okay, maybe they end up with 15. Like, I don't know. I think Penn State would have taken that, especially given what they were able to retain with some of the guys.
Like I said, they've impressed me with the retention. We named a bunch of hypothetical players that we thought could go to Virginia Tech or would be interested. They either stayed or went somewhere else. Okay, so you aced portal retention, player retention. You got a ton of instant impact Iowa State players. That third category, it's kind of by proxy, disappointing. But Virginia Tech suffers because Matt Campbell came in and took care of a lot of goals early on. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of the show as always. He is Pat Koerbler, contributor over at Black Shoe Diaries. Links to his work will be down in the description. I highly encourage you to go check them out. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. As always, appreciate everyone being here for this show. Pat, appreciate you being here for this show. Can't wait to chat with you again, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Yep, as always, enjoy it, Zach. I know this portal season has been wilder and crazier than we could have ever imagined, but that's how new coaching staffs go. So thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.